everyone. Welcome back to the Quiet Rebellion. And today we have Maddie from the Badass Quilter with us, who is just really all around badass. I love her account. And we're going to talk specifically about mending, although she does all kinds of really amazing quilting and other things. We're going to talk specifically about mending today. So, how are you, Maddie?
Thank you. I mean, I've always find it's funny greeting people these days. They're like, "How are you?" And I'm just "Fantastic," except, you
Yes.
know, it's that's a given, right
Right.
now, unfortunately. But generally very good. We're very hot and muggy here in Chattanooga right now.
Oh, yikes. Okay. So, I live in Northwest Montana. And while we do get hot in July, we never get muggy. I'm originally from Pennsylvania. So, I know what humidity is like, but we don't ever have it here. I really feel for everybody when they're like, it's so muggy. Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry to hear that.
it is.
And I know what you mean. It's hard to be like, yeah, I'm doing good,
Yeah.
but when there's so much horror in the
Yeah,
world.
it really is. It's very difficult that way. And I figured there should be an alternative greeting. And I don't know what it is yet, but I'm working on it.
I know, because I don't ever want people to be like, I don't want to be like, well, I'm not good because I am, and I don't want people to like worry about me
Yes.
personally, right? Like, or my
Yeah.
health or my family. Like, we're all healthy and well. But yes, there is so much, and it can feel so oppressive.
Yes.
Um, yeah, my husband and I spend a lot of time just like sitting in the recliner, and we'll both just be really quiet, and then we'll be like, "Did you see?" And then we just start railing, and then we're just like, "Okay, we have to stop."
Yeah. Isn't it? Yeah. Every time my phone dings off the side and I see a new NPR article, and I'm like, "Am I in an emotional place to click on this? I'm like, can I do this right now?" It's like, yes, no, okay,
Yeah.
and then I go forth or I don't go forth, depending on
Right.
what.
One of the things, I have done for a long time, and I don't think I'll ever change this, is I have no notifications on my phone.
Well, that's nice.
None. And that helps in a lot of ways for me,
I
but
can
that
imagine.
doesn't mean I still spend plenty of time. I spend more time than I should doom scrolling, but I don't have
Yeah.
notifications, so that helps a little bit.
Yeah, I do. I have some notifications, and I have also somebody mentioned I was at their home that my phone bings and dings all night because I have friends on opposite coasts and stuff like that who are contacting me for whether it's business or work or pleasure or whatever it is. But then I am the mother of six,
Oh, yes.
and they're all grown, and so but they still need their mama
Sure.
sometimes, and so I'm always in contact with them as well. So I'm pretty used to filtering it out anymore. Luckily,
Good for you. Good for
yeah.
you. It's hard. It can be hard. All right. Well, the reason I asked you to join was because you had a reel the other day on Instagram that I saw, and it was talking about mending.
Yes.
And you mentioned about it being resistance. And I actually agree. I think that mending is a great way to quietly rebel against kind of a consumerist culture.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And I've always recommended it, and I do mend. So, and when you said that, I was like, okay, let's talk about this. So, how do you think that mending can help us kind of quietly rebel and resist mainstream culture, but also just kind of tyranny? I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
How are you fighting tyranny by mending pants?
yeah.
Yeah, so that is what I usually say is it's a great way to fight the patriarchy.
Yeah,
And because being able to relieve ourselves one from the fast fashion carousel, which means, kind of financially, protecting ourselves in many ways, let alone protecting the planet and protecting workers. And I mean, it's such a huge thing. I think there's nothing that it doesn't protect in the end. It also gives you a great sense of independence to be somebody who has a broken zipper, a broken button, a ripped seam or whatever, and not to be really hampered by that. And I mean, nobody loves those things, but to say, I can fix that. I can change my trajectory of my day because I have this skill, as opposed to being, I can't wear those pants to that interview, or I don't have these things, or um, I don't have the skills to do that, let alone being able to take that skill out into the world like a backpack mending clinic. You know how many backpacks end up getting trashed just because the strap pulls out? The backpack otherwise is in fantastic condition, but we have millions and millions years of school backpacks that get trashed because and they're not handed down to the next kid or donated or whatever because they've just lost a strap. They've just unhooked a strap.
That's really interesting. I never thought about that. So I never had children, but I still have my backpack from junior high. I'm not kidding. I
There you go.
still have it. And I don't even think I've ever repaired it, honestly. Now, it has not gotten a ton of use in the last several years, but I have used it for day hikes and all kinds of stuff. I've used it forever. So I never think about that, but you're right. And so just the idea. It is a rebellion not to consume.
Yes,
Like it is a rebellion in so many ways.
absolutely.
Patriarchy, capitalism, everything, just to not be a consumer. Unfortunately, we're often just trained to be a consumer, and sometimes we have this belief, I think, that it will be cheaper to just buy something new instead of repair it. And
Or easier or faster or any of those things, let alone we're just conditioned to want that new thing.
right,
As opposed to it being like a rite of passage to have your big brother's backpack now.
right.
Your big brother, he's left for college or whatever the case may be, and so you get to use it now. I mean, so it's when we don't have that in our culture, when we have it's always got to be the new thing, it just sets you up for all the problems that come with it.
Yeah, the whole instant gratification. And the minute we decide we're gonna go online or we're gonna go to a store to buy something new, we are automatically tempted into buying more than what we just went in there for.
Absolutely. I mean, who goes to the grocery store and just buys cottage cheese? I mean, my husband.
Yeah.
But I'm like, "But you didn't bring me back a treat?"
Right, right, which like, I would never, right? I would always bring home a treat, of
I know,
course, because 'cause you're
always.
there.
I
Yeah.
know. I know, definitely so. But, yeah, so it helps with the budget. I mean, there's just nothing that it doesn't help with, and unfortunately, I don't wanna be that tinfoil hat person, who's like, this is setting us up for something, but it really has set us up for this cycle of not being able to care for ourselves and care for our families in a way that is meaningful and is empowering. Because when we're people without power, if we're not fighting, fixing our backpacks, we're not fighting it back against patriarchy either. We're
Right.
not there's just this road, there's this funnel. When they talk about like that kind of that tradwife funnel of becoming, this like super conservative person, there's also this funnel of becoming somebody or a group of people who cannot care for themselves. Even in the most basic functions. I mean, there are people now who hire people to hang pictures in their house because they don't own a hammer.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know that, but I'm not surprised. Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
service here in town. I saw it. I was like, "Are you" I was like, "First place, brilliant," because there's tons of people who, like, literally don't have their stuff hung up because they're like, "I don't have the right nail. I don't have a hammer. I don't have a whatever." I mean, what I say about my kids is they were born with hammers and wrenches in their hands. It was very uncomfortable that way, but they just always been doers, but I was raised by a doer, so I am a doer, so my kids are doers.
Right.
And
That's true, yeah.
if you didn't have that mentoring in your life, you didn't have that fixing mentoring, the chances are, you either had to come to it on your own or you just didn't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and I have the personality and thankfully my husband also, since we've been married a long time, we both have this personality where we're just like, "We'll figure it out. How hard
Yeah.
can it be?"
I know. Well, and I'm like, yeah, saucy. I'm like, if a mediocre white man can do it, I can do it too.
It's just like, how hard can anything be, right? Like, and sometimes my husband definitely has more mechanical aptitude than I do. He was raised like where they fixed cars, right? And so he has a lot of that kind of aptitude. Whereas I definitely have my own skill set. And so if I can't figure something out, he can usually, or vice versa, you know? And if I ever break something and I'm just like, hey, can you fix this? And he's the same way about mending with me. He'll come to me and he'll be like, I got this little tear on the corner of my hoodie. Can we fix it, but not like have it, not super visible mending kind of thing? And absolutely, we can fix it. So, yeah, I think you either have that attitude or you don't. And I think any kind of attitude is a muscle. You can build it, but
Absolutely.
it takes probably a little more work if you're not naturally inclined to be like, well, I'll just figure it out.
And I think that's the best part about teaching kids, kinda like an intervention point. Because when
Hmm.
we hear about lots of other interventions, we hear about, stopping these whatever where it is, making a house of readers or whatever it is starting with kids because, like, kids they're so amazing. You put them in front of a sewing machine and they're like, "What does this button do? What does this do?"
Right.
And, like, you put an adult in front of one of them and they sit there like a lump on a log.
Right.
They don't have a lot of curiosity because curiosity has really been beaten out of a large part of our population. And so I'm always flabbergasted by it. Or there's so much fear, but kids no fear. No fear
Right.
whatsoever. And I mean, that's what I always teach the kids, as adults. When I teach kids also sometimes, but as adults, I said, come into it with the attitude of the fearless attitude of, a 5-year-old with a superhero cape.
Right. There you go. That's great.
You can do this.
Right. I several years ago, more than several years ago now, I taught a bunch of classes with a local farmer gal that I'm friends with. We did some, and she was like, "Let's do a class on making pestos." And I was like, "But it's so basic. Like, why would anyone take that?" And what she said to me was that we're not really teaching the skill. We're giving people permission to
Mm,
play because people need that. People need the permission and need to know that it's just going to be okay. And ever since then, I've really like that lesson from her, who's a good friend of mine, has really stuck with me in everything I've done and created on content online is because people sometimes just need to know it's okay if you mess up. And I think that's true with sewing. Like the worst that happens is you have to rip out a seam. Everybody does it no matter how long you've been
and
crafting
no
or
matter how
sewing.
good you are,
Right.
you will have to take out a seam, or you will have to, I've put the wrong arm on the wrong side. I mean,
Right.
that's usually when you're sewing too late.
Yeah. Right. You're too tired.
And things are getting too tired and you're like, "I need to put that down." Um,
Yeah.
I mean, how many things I say that about because I knit, I do needlepoint, I do all those things. And I said, how many things in life can we untangle that easily?
Right.
You
Yeah.
can't
I've done a plenty
untangle
of
a
knitting
bad
too.
marriage or a bad relationship that easily, a work situation. There are so many things that we cannot untangle easily. Sewing and knitting and those kind of things, generally speaking, those come apart very easily and let us start over with no penalty whatsoever.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I mean, and even if you start a pattern and like when you're finished making it and you don't love it, yeah, maybe you wasted some fabric and your time, maybe, but you can always tear it apart and use it in different ways.
You paid for a lesson. I always
That's
say
right.
that I paid for a lesson. What did I learn from this? What did I
Right.
learn? I either did I learn that that kind of fabric's really not great, or what did I learn from this that I would have basically, if somebody said, "I can give you a life lesson for $22 that will take you forever." You're like, "Okay, well, you learned a $22 life lesson."
That's right. And you can always reuse fabric.
You can.
Don't forget that. Like our parents did. I have by anytime I see a quilt top at like a yard sale or garage
Yep.
sale, I buy that puppy
Yes.
and bring it home. And anytime I look at old ones, you can absolutely tell that those pieces were reused from shirts or flour sacks or whatever. They absolutely
Absolutely, and they've been mended multiple,
yes.
multiple
Yes.
times.
Yes.
And that's okay too. I mean, I think about that because 'cause I'm a big thrifter, and that's where I find a lot of stuff, and that's where the whole mending thing really comes kinda home to roost. Like, the other day, I found a really great if that's probably the video that you saw, I found a really great looking pair of pants, and they were just missing a button. I have
Which is the
found
easiest thing.
incredibly, incredibly expensive winter ski coats because one of the teeth was busted on the zipper. I mean, and most of the time you can actually straighten those. You can get in there with a pair of pliers and you can actually straighten them. And that was all it took in a couple coats. And that's actually really cool because that empowers me to actually be able to buy these because like one of my thrifts, if it's a damaged item and you can show it to them, they'll even give you half off the price of the thrifted price. And, so I'm able to acquire coats, fix them, and then give them to our unhoused population
Nice.
to give
Yeah.
them really good quality coats.
Right.
And so, it gives you so much power.
So great. Okay, so for somebody who might be new, who didn't learn this as a child, I definitely learned from my grandmother who was a quilter and a sewer. And I can remember learning like the very first project I learned how to do with her was she taught me how to make cloth napkins because it's just an easy seam, it's perfect. But for folks who are new to mending, is there something what's like the easiest entry point for them, do you think?
Gracious. I mean, I think the entry point is looking in your closet and seeing what's missing. A button. doing a
Yeah,
button is
so
always
easy.
really easy as an easy place to start. And then before that is just having a couple of things on hand that you might need to do that. And that's just really as simple as a small kit of needles and a basic kit of thread. Now, I do caution folks that very often you'll see like little mending kits places,
Yeah,
of course we can't go to Joann's anymore because the Joann's is defunct.
yeah,
And I won't step in Hobby Lobby. But you can go to Michael's, and you can go to your local quilt store, and say, "I'd like to make myself a small mending kit." But buying the little pre-done ones, the problem is that the thread in those most likely is not of very good quality. It's going to shred, it's going to break, and then you're not gonna have even a good process for yourself in putting on a button. So just some basic thread, some basic white thread, some needles, and then YouTube is your friend.
yeah.
How to sew on a button. There are fabulous mending books out there now too. There's mending on like invisible mending, which means that you never know anybody was there and it's perfect, or visible mending, which is very, very on trend right now, where you see really great, exciting embellishments that are done over areas that need to be fixed. I have a beautiful, really beautiful cashmere sweater that obviously had been somebody had gotten it, and it had gotten a moth or two. A moth had gotten to it. It's a beautiful, incredibly expensive cashmere sweater. So I went in and I needle felted over those spots. And I put little polka dots all over the sweater, and I get compliments every time I wear it. And so there's lots of ways, but sewing on a button is your gateway skill
Right.
to mending.
It sure is, and I always say, like, it can be, like anything, it doesn't have to always be one way, right? Like, sometimes, like, for instance, when we were talking just a minute ago about my husband's hoodie, he very much it was just like this tiny little hole on the pocket, the front pocket, and, I was like, "Well, I can just use one of those little iron-on patches right there, and it'll work, and it lasts a long time." So, you can absolutely do that in a pinch, but sewing on a button, it's pretty easy. Replacing a zipper, definitely more skill, probably, for most of us. If you've never done something before, that would not be the jumping off point I would recommend.
Not unless you're that kind of person. I
Yeah.
mean, for better or worse, I am that sort of person.
Are you? Yeah.
The first heirloom thing I ever made was a 4-foot long baptism gown for my daughter.
Wow, very nice, yeah.
So and I hand smocked it and everything like that. So I am an in for a penny, in for a pound kind of girl,
Yeah.
but there are definitely levels. Sewing the seam,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
stepping up to getting a sewing machine for
Right.
some people. And there's lots of sewing machines. People are like, that's expensive. Sewing machines can be expensive. But you know what? There are a ton of people with sewing machines out there in their closets
That's right.
and that are not getting used. And I always find that people say, whatever community you circling, whether it's a church or a synagogue or your workplace or whatever, putting out the word, I'm looking for a running sewing machine that somebody's not using
Right.
because I would like to learn how to sew. Almost always, a sewing machine will show up.
I agree, absolutely, and then in this day and age, you could quite honestly run an ad on Craigslist or the Facebook Marketplace or any of those kinds of
Yeah,
things.
you can definitely look there too.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. I live in Northwest Montana. It's sort of rural. I mean, not sort of. It is rural by most standards, and so and we have a sewing machine repair place here. So you could actually go and find a used machine from him that he has completely reconditioned. So and I'm
Yeah.
assuming there's probably something like that everywhere. I don't know for
I
sure,
think
but
in many places there are, and there's just the levels of acquiring.
right,
And I mean, I usually like to know for people that one works because picking up one at the thrift shop, because you always assume that it's you doing something wrong. And
right,
sometimes it is operator error. But often when it comes to sewing machines, if they've ended up at a thrift store or whatever, it's because something has happened to them and there's something that's not working. The timing's off, whatever.
right,
People get rid of them because they don't want to repair them because repairing can be spendy. So, I mean, there's like these kind of layers of acquisition, but finding
sure,
somebody who sews, because a lot of people who sew, like myself, very guilty of this, have multiple sewing machines. So I've been able to lend a sewing machine to a friend who was trying to decide whether they really wanted to sew, if that was something they wanted to do. So I think that they're definitely out there. There are also mending places at libraries these days.
I know, yeah, right,
Libraries lend out sewing machines. So, yeah, but needle and thread is the only way that you can start there.
right,
Easy peasy.
absolutely.
For
You don't have to buy a
less than
machine,
$10.
Right. You can hem pants with just a needle and thread. Yes, quicker, faster, maybe stronger, depending on your hand strength with the machine, but you can absolutely do plenty of things. Our
Really.
foremothers did
They did.
absolutely for a
They
long time not have
they
sewing
did
machines.
everything, and there are actually people who still there's a wonderful community online of people who do most of their sewing by hand. A whole
Yeah.
garment. It's amazing.
Yeah. And so I will admit that I don't have that patience level, but I don't. That doesn't mean that other people don't. I
No,
don't.
there aren't, and sometimes people will find their groove there. That is, I mean, the whole slow
Right.
sewing world is replete with many amazing creators that way. Now, I have to admit, I do love my really beautiful sewing machines and all that stuff like that. But you know what? I always figure that the needle and thread is going to get me out of majority of my problems. And so, like, people don't do it really anymore. And it used to be like a million years ago, you would go to a hotel and they would have a little mending kit, like in the drawer. You'd
Yeah.
have your Gideon Bible, and there would be a mending kit and a pad of paper and a pen.
Right.
And as it turns out, I found out they actually still do have the mending kits. They're just downstairs at the desk because a friend ripped something while I was at an event with them, and they were like, "Yes, we do have a mending kit." And so I was able to fix their thing.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super great. Okay, and so for folks who do perhaps have many skills, because in your reel you mentioned this, like people who sometimes we all get a little snobby, a little highbrow. I'm guilty of it too sometimes, and I appreciate when people call me on it. So, and one of the things you mentioned was like quilters who are like, I don't want to mend.
Oh,
So, do you think it's kind of that they just don't have this other skill set? Because it's a different skill set, right? Hemming is slightly different than quilting. It's a slightly replacing a zipper,
mhm.
different than quilting. It's a different skill set, but not unlearnable, certainly, because you already have the basics down. You know how to thread a needle and get everything started. So, what do you think it is? Is it just resistance to wanting to do something basic and mundane? I'm saying mundane, but I don't have a problem with mundane.
No, no, I get it, definitely. So this one's a real hot button topic for me, I will admit, because while I quote unquote brand it up as being having the title that I have because of a circumstance and how that all went down, I really love and embrace all kinds of sewing and crafts and different stuff like that. I have found that there is a certain amount of high mindedness that surrounds the quilting mystique at times, and not all quilters by any stretch of the imagination, but there is a pretty vocal subset in the quilting world who do have their nose a little higher than I think it should be, about the fact that, that they don't mend because they're a quilter. And I don't like it. I don't subscribe to it. And I will call it out when I see it because it's just, it makes the world of quilting look very unwelcoming. And the truth of the matter is the world of quilting is incredibly unwelcoming to a vast number of people if you are not middle class and white. And that's a big hot button topic. And when we have that nose in the air, I don't mend because I'm a quilter. How about you don't mend because you don't want to mend?
Right. And you have a certain level of privilege because there's a lot
Yeah,
of people who
and
don't even have the
you have a
option.
certain amount of privilege, and then so I came back with talking the other day about mending as being part of community and how we cannot build strong community if we are not willing to do for each other as our skills allow. So I can't expect that my neighbor's gonna help me when my tree falls in my yard with his big chainsaw if I'm not willing to fix his boat cover. If I'm not willing. Now, I don't think anybody should have to, because it does turn out it's greatly on the backs of women in this situation when it comes to sewing. I don't think anybody needs to be abused in this situation.
Right.
So if you have a coworker who says, I have it's different if they say, I have one pair of pants and I'm having trouble with them. Do you think you could help me mend them or whatever it is? And they say directly, I would love to buy you lunch because of that. I would love to watch take your kids to the movies for the afternoon. I would love whatever. My neighbor who needed a boat cover fixed, spread a ton of mulch for me. Um, and I found that incredibly equitable. So there's the reciprocity in that. in building community. And when we see again and again, people say, well, I don't know my neighbors. I don't, whatever. I don't have a community. Well, if you're not willing, and I'm just picking on mending here, if you're not willing to be a help to a neighbor or a friend in that way, are you building those bridges of community? Again, with the caveat that you should not be somebody who's expected to do it just because you're a woman and without some amount of reciprocity.
Right, absolutely. This is about reciprocity and about community and, um, yeah, sometimes well, not something, lots of things are broken, but have you read, the Journals of Martha Ballard from, like, the Revolutionary War period? Way
No,
before that, actually. It's a really great book, and I feel like I'm saying her last name wrong. It's a scholarly, like, examination of her record. She was a midwife in the 1700s in New England. And
interesting.
it's really interesting, but one of the things that she talks about kind of is her economy. Like, yes, she is delivering babies, but no one expected her to deliver babies for free. There
No,
was and she would keep track of like, "Oh, so and so brought me whatever, wine or,
chicken.
brandy or whatever." Yeah, whatever it was. And so that book has been really it's just such a great book. But it is this idea that women have this economy that is so often not examined. And somewhere along the line, it has become this idea that women should just do it for free, when actually that has never historically not been true.
Women haven't done that for free.
Right.
They were trading it for eggs or bread or calico or whatever. It was just an alternative. It was the Bitcoin of their time. I
Right.
mean,
It's bartering, which is what communities have always done before we had paper money, really.
absolutely. And the thing was is that everybody had skills then. I
Right.
mean, it didn't really, there just wasn't somebody in your life who didn't. I mean, it might not have been the same skills you had. You might not been, especially adept at weaving baskets,
Right.
but you could, sew up a little girl's dress, like it was nothing or whatever. So you were able to do those things. And we've come to a time again where we just don't have basic skills. And so sometimes, I mean, to harken back, you asked, is it because they don't know? It is true that there are quilters who came into it quilting. And so they don't know how to put in a zipper. They don't actually know how to hem pants. They don't know how to do those things. But those are all very learnable skills, and, I just nothing I can't say nothing, but it's high on my rankling list of when people say, "I couldn't do that," or "I can't do that." Like, when I'm knitting some socks with a motif in them. "Oh, I could never do that. I tried knitting and I can't." And what I usually say is that if a seven-year-old in Bangladesh can do it, you can do it too.
That's right.
And it's not fair that seven-year-olds in Bangladesh are being forced into all-day handwork that is exquisite. I mean,
Right.
it's absolutely not right. But if they can do it, you're just not doing it. You might
That's
never
right.
do it amazingly, but it's not unless you don't actually have fingers. I mean, I've seen a woman who knits with her feet.
Right. Yeah. No, I've seen all kinds of stuff like that
So
too.
if
So
if
I
you
don't.
really wanted to do it, so just say you don't wanna do it. Don't blame it on that it's some magical thing that you can't do.
Right.
If blind there's a woman who's blind who quilts. I mean, you can say, "I don't wanna quilt. I think that's boring." Awesome. I'm fine with that. I don't wanna mend. Fine, don't mend. Am I gonna look askance at you? Yeah, and I'm not gonna, I'm gonna have feelings. But, don't blame it on not having skills because you can acquire those skills.
Right. And so what you just said was something interesting because I feel like, especially because of social media, we have this idea that it has to be perfect. Has to be perfect. So how do you embrace imperfection or encourage other people to just kind of I'm okay with it. I'm okay if the seam's a little crooked. It's fine. It's just more rustic as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I don't strive. I strive for as good as I can strive for. And then I also spend time noticing the absolute lack of imperfection in everything else in the world that we just assume is perfect. You can take any garment that you buy from the store and trace along the line and you're going to see where it bobbles off.
Right.
You're going to see how one seam, if you actually did the math, if you took a tape measure to the item, how it's not the same, how the legs are not exactly hemmed to the same length. And we look past that every day. And yet we look so much more closely at things that we make. And I'm guilty of that too, of going, ooh, but what I tend to tell myself, I'll look at that tomorrow. And if it bothers me still tomorrow when I look at it, then I need to take it out and fix it. And there are people obviously who, honor their OCD, and they have to make things very, 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 very perfect. But that level of perfection, I think, takes the joy away from a lot of things. But
I agree. It becomes very pressured.
you look at somebody says, "Oh, well, a new home is so much better." Well, I know new homes, I mean, you can go through every day and find flaws in absolutely new homes. There is no perfection out there. And so to bind yourself to that is just it's useless.
My husband and I always always say it adds character.
Yeah, we live in a 100-year-old house that I'm redoing, and I'm like, literally, what we refer to as that's visually level because it's not really level. But if your wall is not level, you're like, if it doesn't make your eyes swim when you look at it, we're like, that's good.
There you go. See, I have a friend who's a potter, amazing, beautiful potter, and, she gave me a little pitcher that she had made, and the glaze dripped on the side. And she was like, "I can't s" this is what she does for a living. She's like, "I can't sell that." And I was like, "Well, I need to pay you for it because of course she made it." And she's like, "No, no, I can't sell it, and I want you to have it, and because it has this little drip." And I was like, "I like it even more
I
because
know.
of that drip."
There is a thing of looking at that, and I think that's where people can really embrace visible mending a lot. Of course, there
Right.
are places in the world where I mean, like, in our day-to-day life that maybe if you're going to a job interview, visible mending probably unless you're in a very artsy craftsy field,
Right. It's
visible
probably
mending
not right, yeah.
is not gonna do it. But, like, when you look at what's on the fashion runways and stuff like that, you've got, like, all kinds of patchwork and patchy stuff and all kinds of, like, really individual things. And so visible mending is also this way to, like, let your creative muse
Mhm.
out
Yep.
as well, and, it's a lot more forgiving.
Right. And you get to have something that's one of a kind, right?
You
Like,
do.
how many people can say, "It's one of a kind?" You get to have your one of a kind thing, so
It's a lot of fun.
so if someone is working full time, for example, taking care of children, taking care of a spouse or sick parents, and just everything that this modern chaos, how do you suggest maybe fitting mending in so that it doesn't become something else that's overwhelming, another task that's just too much to tackle? Is there a way to embrace it or find
So I think that's a kind of a two-part question. I said, first, you have to find the joy in it.
Mhm.
Because if you really want to do it. And then after that, I think, and this is a little controversial, but since the average person now they're saying is between scrolling and watching television is watching like 5 hours a day.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That means you have 5 hours.
Yeah.
There are 5 hours in your life, and quite frankly, for me, that's the one time where I will actually sit down and watch something on Netflix if I have to repair something because I
Right.
can watch Netflix and get sometimes I'm like, "Ooh, get your," I have something to repair. It means I get to sit down and watch, because I am not a television watcher. I'm not a watch. I'm a podcast and like audiobook listener,
Mhm.
but there is free time. It is
Right.
the rarest of persons who really don't because we would not have that statistic otherwise.
Right.
I
That's
mean,
very
yes, if the average person is doing like 5 hours, between doom scrolling and watching television, yes, there's the person who has 0, but there's the person who's got like who's watching 24 hours a day. I
right,
mean,
yeah.
that's how we get, that's how that average comes out. So I think we all have them. So first it's a switch in attitude. I'd say it's actually 3 parts. Third, the other part is having the tools necessary handy.
Mhm.
Having them right where you so having a basket, a tin, the ubiquitous, what is it, like the Danish cookie tin
Yeah, the cookie tin. Yeah, yeah.
with storing supplies in it. Have that in wherever you plop down to watch TV or to doom scroll or to whatever watching YouTube videos or whatever. If you have it right there, as opposed to like you've sat down and you're like, oh God, I can't get up again. But if that tin is right there and it's got your thread in it, it's got your needle in it, then you can sew up your kid's backpack while you doom scroll, while you watch the video. And so I think you can do it. So it just becomes then, how important is it that your kid has fix jeans for the next day? Is it a next thing, or is it, because I think when we do let it build up, when we have lots of mending,
Right.
that can seem a little more onerous.
It does. It's like anything, right? Like when you set the pile, when the pile starts to build, it becomes more overwhelming rather than if we just tackle
A
as
little
it
bit.
comes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like you said, a button takes no time. 5 minutes?
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And so, but if you've got 10 pairs of pants and, sitting there or things that need buttons and other stuff, it really will start to add up. And then it starts to become this thing that no one wants to do. And it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what the task is. It's like if there's a sink full of dishes versus, just doing it after each meal or
Absolutely.
whatever. Yeah.
The thing is if those things are in a pile, it means they're not being used. And so I'm gonna be wild and say, if you're just not gonna use any of those, just get rid of them and start fresh.
Right.
If
And that's a good
you
point
just
too.
cannot deal with that pile, you're not using them anyway. They are not part of the rotation in your house. Now, the thing that is kind of interesting, one of my big pet peeves is people who send things to the thrift store with stains on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stains that mean if a stain goes to a thrift store, it usually means it's been through the washer and the dryer and it came out with a stain and people did not want to deal with it. And so there are I've become like a stain wizard. I mean,
My
that I
husband is a stain wizard. He really is. He's amazing at it.
oh, we need a stain wizard club. I'm actually amazed at some of the stuff I can get out. There have been a couple things that I've gotten and I'm like, I wonder if I can get that out. I mean, because
Yeah.
one of my thrifts is I'm also like, look at this stain. And usually they actually cull those things out. And that's actually kind of one of the things also is that the amount of things that thrift stores don't put out because
I
people
know.
donated it in the worst possible condition. I mean, just disgusting stuff. So there is that. But yeah, so if you're not gonna do all those things, just get rid of them. Just either decide that yes, I don't you don't want to do it, but it's good enough for somebody else maybe to fix. But quite frankly, a lot of thrift stores, if it's missing a button, they don't put it out.
Yeah.
If it's missing a zipper, if they notice that it's got a broken zipper, they don't put it out. So you might as well just throw it away.
Right.
Throw it away, clear the decks, and then the next pair of pants that shows up and needs a button, you've got your kit, you're ready, you can put your button on.
There you go.
And just absolve yourself of that pile. Or that pair of pants that's sitting in your closet and you go put it on, and you remember that the button doesn't work. And then so you like throw it in a pile in your corner of your room or God forbid you put it back up in your closet. Why we do that, I do not know because I mean we all have that kind of natural thing,
Right.
but just get rid of it.
Just right, I agree, and this is part of the idea too, though, is what you were saying is that our thrift stores just throw things away. Now, we have a local thrift store, it's called Flathead Industries, and they employ and house folks with developmental disabilities. They hire those folks, but one of the things they do is they make stacks of rags from clothes that they can't resell, and then, they're pretty much disposable, so if, like, a mechanic wants to use them, once they
A
get a
rag
certain
bag.
amount of grit, yeah, and
All
so
our mothers had one.
yes.
Everybody's mother had one that, you looked at it and it was like the polish was all over it. You're like, "I think those were my pajamas."
Right. Yes, exactly. And one of the things we do, and so this was my grandmother, I'm sure, who taught me this. I have a little jar. It's just a jar, like maybe a pint-sized jar. I think it's an old peanut butter jar, actually, that has buttons in it.
Of
So when
course.
I get rid of something, I keep the buttons because you might need a button, and I don't want to have to go shopping for a button. Right?
Absolutely. If you're gonna throw something away and you're gonna yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite finds at thrift stores is button jars.
Yeah, there you
And
go. Because they're always there.
they show up on the regular and they're like a little history.
Yeah.
So they're a lot of fun.
If you're new to mending, buy one of those jars for $2 at the thrift store. You'll be glad you have it. It's
Yeah,
so
because they're
easy.
expensive.
They are. And then just the idea, like, when you wanna sit down and mend, yeah, dump the button jar out, find the one that works. Then you don't have to, like, go shopping. You don't have to go out of your house. You don't have to do anything. Just
Ask somebody, there is somebody with a button jar. That's back to the community aspect of it. Somebody's been the person who's kept like, those little packages that come on like nicer clothing with the extra buttons
yeah, yeah, sure.
or whatever, and you throw them in the drawer in your bedroom. And somebody's got like a ton of those someplace. And so if you don't have any buttons yet, say, hey, I'm starting to mend. I need some buttons. Does anybody have extra buttons out there? Buttons are going to show up in your life.
Yes, it's true. Yes, absolutely. So this is just a great reminder about community. One of my kind of in the back of my head dreams for a community event is I very much wanna have a repair day.
Yes.
where we do, like, where we repair clothing and whatever, toasters and all of that kind of stuff for the whole community to come. It's in my head. I don't know when I'm gonna make it happen, but it's back there.
That's amazing. No, I mean, there's a lot of places to do that in cooperation with.
Right.
I haven't been able to pull it off this season because I just became a grandmother again,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I've been very busy with that, but I would really like to do a backpack mending clinic,
Oh, yeah.
and so people could bring their backpacks and have a couple of us with our sewing machines so that we could fix those backpacks and those, kind of school things that need help that way so that they don't have to buy a new one.
Right. And that's the thing too, right? It is about community. It's about not throwing things away. It's becoming a steward of the earth and becoming a steward of your own finances when you don't have to spend money. I mean, because money always has a way of going away. You will always need it for something. So if you don't have to do it, if you don't have to spend it on new clothing all the time, yeah, it's a great thing. And so do you think, because I think this is true, when you sit with a garment for a number of years, for example, and you mend it and take care of it and it kind of changes as it's mending, do you think it kind of changes your relationship to your wardrobe as well as kind of your community and everything?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, first place, there's kind of the pride that you get
Yeah.
out of having a mended garment, or especially one with visible mending on it, or just that secret mending. Or like in my case, I put dresses, like when I find a dress at the thrift shop I really like, 90 to nothing, it's not going to have pockets in it. So I
Oh,
go
yeah.
back and I can put pockets in my dresses. And I'm always like, yes, it has. Somebody says it's a cute dress. I'm like, yes, it has pockets. And so like
Right.
I'm flashing them
Every
my
woman.
pocket because usually I put like some really very fun fabric to make the pocket. So you start taking a different idea about your wardrobe because again, just kind of circling back to fast fashion is that there was a time where you had your two dresses. You had your two dresses and your church dress, or
Right.
you had your two whatevers. And you took very good care of them and you were a better steward of what you owned that way.
Mhm.
There was a time, I can't even remember who I was talking to, and I was saying I needed to get some shoe polish. And they're like, they still make shoe polish?
Yeah, I still
Yeah,
polish my
but the
shoes.
people don't know, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's me because I said, I need to do my boots because it helps keep them waterproof. There's a special kind and blah, blah, blah." And they were like, "Wow." I mean, it was just like, I'm so amazed at what we don't know anymore, but I realized I grew up in a house where once a month or whatever, my dad wore Western boots all the time, and he would get out his boots and he would get out his polishing kit
Kit,
with
sure.
a little box with a little edge on it, and he'd open it up, and inside it would have all these very stinky polishes. I remember thinking that they were stinky,
Yeah.
and he'd have a brush and the whole thing. And so again, it's that evolution of coming down through things. Now you do find like very artisan things and things that are happening like that, people who really know, but by and far the lack of understanding that you can do these things is, or that you can get your boots fixed. Now, mind you, it's harder now because there are not very many cobblers
There's not
around.
as many. Yeah. We have, yeah.
That is very hard. I think we have one in our whole city that I know of. And those are like renaissance skills but we've gotten to the point where people are like, oh, well, we just throw that away.
I know. And so that kind of brings me to one of my last questions, which is, do you because okay, because we had talked earlier about kind of the trad wife thing, and I'm so opposed.
Oh, yeah.
Because it has this idea that we need to be able to do all the things, and I don't think that that's necessarily true. Like we said, you could ask a neighbor to do that something to help you, and you can help them with your skills. We do not have to do all the things, but I do think basic mending is something we can all do and fit in, like a button or a torn
It's a
seam kind
life
of thing.
skill. It's a life skill. We teach kids how to cross the road and safely.
Yeah,
We teach them how to drive cars.
right,
Theoretically, we teach them how to do banking, which I
right.
don't think we actually really do very much
Whew,
anymore.
I don't think so either.
But so why not that as a life skill?
Right.
Why isn't that a life skill? Because it is a life skill.
And so my hope, I mean, when I think about mending, is I hope that what it does is it teaches people to be less of a consumer, teaches them about the value of things, because it also teaches us the value of other people's work,
Yeah.
right? Right? Because when you buy a garment, you don't necessarily think about how much work went into making that. Because all clothes are handmade.
Exactly. All clothes are hand there are no machines. That is one thing that machines absolutely somebody's gonna say, "What's a sewing machine?" I'm like, "The sewing machine's not run by ether. It is run by a person." So there's somebody's hand has touched your clothing.
So all clothes are handmade. So you don't necessarily think about the value of those clothes. I'm going to tell you this because I think you'll love this. Years ago, I bought a skirt at a yard sale. It was like this in the middle of nowhere kind of sale. We were on a drive and I was like, well, let's just stop. And I bought this skirt very much from like probably the late 1960s. And on the inside was a tag talking about the union that made that skirt,
Yes.
which you would never see now, of course, because most of our clothes aren't made in the United States and they certainly aren't made by unions.
Yeah.
And I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. I'm very much a union girl. I
Yes.
loved that. I loved it. And
Yeah.
I
You're like,
wore
"Can I
that.
wear that on the outside?" Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, that's the thing. We need to remember that there's a lot of someone's work went into that, and we need to value them and their time. See, capitalism makes us think that we should just accept that everybody's going to work and it should be for pennies, but that's not. So when
No.
we mend, we have a certain level of value that will come. We will start to understand. It's like when you cook from scratch too, right? You start to understand, well, that's why it's so expensive at a restaurant because it takes forever to make or whatever. So do you have those kinds of like as you teach maybe your grandchildren, do you hope that that teaches them a little bit more about value and consumption as they mend or
It has. I think it taught my kids a lot about that. It taught them, to respect what they thought was easy for me to do.
right.
Because it looked easy.
Right,
Because
right,
I have the skill and I have the time and I have the talent that I've learned over time to make things look easy that are not necessarily easy, but are very learnable. So when they have to, had to learn how to, sew different things and I did my best to make those things fun. We learned how to hand sew by making stuffed animals. We
right,
learned how to, it didn't have to be the Victorian drudge of sitting and mending socks. Although it turns out my kids loved mending socks
right,
because we did like really bright, colorful things and we did them lots of fun and everything. But because kids really love to do grown up things.
right,
And so, being able to do that and learn it as a skill makes all the difference that way so that they can feel empowered. And I think it helps people understand when they've tried something because you can even try it and decide, nope, do not like that. I know how to do it. And then say, and that does help you understand then why two levels of reciprocity are equal.
right, right,
Why, because hemming pants, I mean, depending on what level you're doing it on, can be a pretty fast little thing, or it can be very entailed if it's a pair of like dress pants.
right. And you don't want to seem, yeah.
Yeah. So there's like different things. And so understanding that and understanding why it costs so much. And it's an opportunity to educate people because when somebody says, "Well, I called the local alteration place and they wanted $20 a pair to hem my jeans." And I'm like, "Well, I'll charge you 25." Because you're just being so snotty about it, you
Right,
know?
right, yeah, exactly. Oh gosh, I know.
It's
I
like,
can't sit.
"No." I said, "Well, can you do it?" I'm like, "No." Well, then, that's the reason, because it takes time and it takes energy to pull all those things and do them. So I think it helps people understand how hard some things are, but hard doesn't mean undoable.
Right. And I think one of the things we could all embrace, myself included, a bit more in life sometimes is the drudgery of things. Like, yeah, mending might not be as creative, might not be, it can be, as making a quilt, but it needs to be done. And our lifestyle right now is like, it's almost too convenient. It's too easy in a lot of ways. Not for everyone. I'm not talking
No,
about everyone,
no, obviously
obviously.
there are people who have incredibly hard rows to hoe. I
Yeah.
mean, by anything, but I mean, let's just face it. I mean, we are on a dopamine roller coaster.
Yeah.
Something doesn't make us excited, but, are you excited about cleaning out the dishwasher? No. Doing laundry? Probably not. And so learning to embrace some of those things and finding the joy in them. Like I said, that you get to watch your special show. You get
Right.
to whatever. For me, I'm just like, woohoo, gets to watch some Netflix.
That's right. Yeah, I absolutely do. I will do a very basic stuff in front of the TV plenty of times, like sew on a button, like knit a washcloth that's not a very intricate pattern,
No,
right?
yeah.
Like something that's just pretty mindless. Or if you're just doing a hat where you're just knitting round and round and round and round and round.
Yeah, color work, I have to be a little more thoughtful when doing color work, in knitting, but I can still listen to my audiobook. Now, like, when it comes to turning a heel on a sock, I actually have to turn the book off because I
Yeah.
have to pay attention to when I'm turning the heel on the sock.
If there's anything that requires a really intricate counting too, I'm done. Like a pattern that, I have to pay attention for that. But there's plenty of things that don't, so you just have to
A
choose.
lot about attitude, and I was really excited to see when I did the video the other day, the kind of the follow-up video about people really thinking about mending in different ways and
Right.
it opening up because it's really easy to jump on, like I said, like you said, the "Oh, I'm a quilter, I don't hem," because it's a spicy little meme, you know?
Sure.
It's a spicy little meme, it's a spicy little take, and so it's really easy to fall into that thing because you wanna be part of that community, you wanna be, but then you think about it and you're like, "Is that really what I wanna be?" So I was really excited that people it was generally there was a couple people who were like, didn't like that at all."
Yeah, there's
And that's
always.
okay too, and
Yeah.
because that's what conversation is about.
Right.
That's what about, having that conversation.
Right.
And some
So
people,
good.
that's just gonna be their thing.
Great. And so, as we wrap up here, do you have anything currently that you're working on or that you're really excited about as far as a mending project?
I'm actually working on some overalls. I found a pair because like denim overalls are really pricey. And I found a pair at the thrift store for $6, but they have a Tweety bird on them. And Tweety bird, very cute, but not my jam.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the overalls are imperfect. They're like from Disney. They're from one of the Disney stores. And so I'm redoing the front of those. I'm remaking those. And then I have my like constant thing. Like I even have they're actually sitting over here. I've got actually the pants from the video. I've got my button jar out up over here so I could find the right size button to go on these. Because I mean, at some point in their career, these I went and looked them up. These were $65 jeans.
Right.
And, I mean, not the most expensive jeans, gosh knows how expensive jeans are out there because some of them get very expensive, but, I mean, I paid $1.89.
Yeah. So you got to, yeah, can't beat it.
No, I know it. So, yeah, so I always have mending, whether it is, invisible mending or visible mending to do, and I find joy in it, and by purposely finding joy in it, it makes it a little easier to do.
Right. And don't forget joy is resistance
And that's
because it's
exactly it. It really is in its power.
right. Right. And
Yes.
I say this in a lot of episodes with people who have been around. Like anything that we do in our homes for our homes also has a way of rippling out in so many ways. And we talked about it here. I mean, it ripples out in that you're not buying things, you're not being wasteful, you're not destroying the earth. There's just so much. When you're not having stuff shipped in from China, from Shane or wherever, it's just better. It will ripple out the more you do at home, which is always where rebellion starts.
It does,
That
and I
and the
think
basement.
sharing of it also and that's the nice part about social media. For all the, the boo and hiss about social media, you when you show that you can do these things, it inspires somebody else.
That's
It
right.
might just be one person, but, I mean, just the other I made some chutney, and somebody said, "You can make chutney?" And I'm like, "You can make anything.
That's right. Yeah.
You can make anything." And they're like, "Oh, wow. Wow." And it's like, you could just see a light bulb just went on for them, and I'm like, "Cool."
That's right. That's perfect. Great. All right. Well, Maddie, tell everybody where they can find you online, please.
The best place to find me is, on Instagram, and the handle is the_badass_quilter.
Perfect. And you have a membership program, I
I
think. Is
do.
that right?
Over on
Yeah.
Patreon, we have a full community. We have about 4,000 people over there. Really like that because it's non-algorithmic, and so we share lots of stuff together, and it is totally and dedicatedly for progressive makers. So,
Perfect.
liberal progressive makers.
Wonderful. Great. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much.